Good day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video. So you were interested in a product demo, so we thought it would be good to start off with a PowerPoint presentation. So please bear with us. We are only going to use this slide to show you what we're going to cover in the actual product demonstration. So, if you're only here for instance, the revenue recognition part, we're going to put some timestamps on it so you can click towards that. We're going to show you first the SaaS metrics and KPIs included in the platform. So think about CMR, MR reports, forecasting reports, cash flow, net retention, things like that. After that, we're going to create and change a subscription. You would expect a subscription management system to be able to create subscriptions and quotes, but we can also, of course, change them, keep proper track of the versioning when contracts change throughout time. And do some proration when in mid-month something changes, stuff like that. After that, we will also do some billing, so in bulk and batches, so you can also see, okay, how does it look like when we do multiple invoices in one go, because we don't like to send each invoice manually, of course, so we show you a bit of the automation there. Also, we're talking about compliant revenue recognition. It's a hot topic, I think, for many businesses. It's not commonly supported in very much creative ways in the finance systems because they're really made for the one-off purchase, right? And we're in a different ball game here with the subscription world. So I'm going to show you a bit of that. And last but not least, we also have an accounts receivable module, which means you can actually invoice in certain ways from Younium directly to your end customer. We have multiple legal entity, multiple currency structures that we will show you as well, so you can see how can my company internationally scale with this as well. So without further ado, I jump straight into the product here, I think. Yes, there we go. So thank you for bearing with me through the intro. As I said, I will first talk about the insights, but before diving in, I will show you a bit on the general, what we see here. So here on the top right, you have demo company. That's how creative we are in naming our environments. And here you have the legal entity structure. So that's already a bit of a spoiler for the accounts receivable part. So typically you see a parent company, which is the owner of, like a big holding. And you have all the offices, the local legal entities in many countries, for instance, or even in the same country. And then you, of course, need some consolidation around currencies, revenue reporting, etc. And here are the notifications. So, hey, Steve closed the deal, go and check it out, things like that. And then on the left here, you have the main menu bar with all the modules that are within Younium. And then here you have the subcategories, in this case, for the insights portion of things. So diving straight into the insights, here you have, this is something you can set up yourself. This is something you can customize. But what I like personally is we have the bookings here, subscriptions and financials. So this is how we set it up, because we think bookings are all the business events, my new deals, my upsells, downsells, churns, net retention, all the things that trigger and change subscriptions in an revenue picture. I think that's what we really like. So that's why we named this bookings. Then we have subscriptions, which tells you more about the recurring performance. How is my MR, AR? How is it per specific product in a specific region, in specific segments, things like that. Also, if you have pay-as-you-go or usage billing, which is super common, also some statistics around usage. How do we track it? How can you report revenue on it? And of course, some consolidation. So how is my MR for my parent company, but how is it for the legal entity in Sweden? How is it for the legal entity in New York? But also how is it on the parent as a consolidated currency as well? And some financials. So how much am I invoicing? How is my cash flow doing? How much am I spending in sales and marketing and revenue recognition? But as mentioned, you can name these categories yourself. You can prioritize dashboards. You can just create and add widgets as you go. Just to highlight a few here on the bookings, this is the short-term ACV, so annual contract value. This says something about the bookings. And here you set the date and time filters. And here you can create certain segments like, industries or countries or whatever. And this date and time filter is set to this month, so it shows all the mutations, the contract events that happened in April. So here you can see we had a starting balance of 782,000 euros ACV. Then we had a nice expansion customer, so a customer that did 18,000 euros of upsell. Then we unfortunately also had a contraction, so that means a partial cancellation, right? Not a full churn. Of 9,600, and then we had a few new customers and we had a closing balance. So this is nice to show throughout the month in each mutation what happens. If you're looking for a more consolidated picture on that, you can see, for instance, here in February we had 6,000 euros in new deals in total. We had 1,600 euros in full churn. We had 300 euros in upsell, that's not a lot, and we had 600 euros in downsell. So that's how you can see like the consolidated version of that. And this is one of those examples where you want to show a few customers and how is my customers growing over time, what is the revenue. So this is a customer dashboard we defined, but again, you can customize this yourself. So how are my customers growing over time? What is the average revenue they bring in? And how is, in general in table version, and what are my new customers, my lost customers, etc. Bit around net retention. So how is my net retention going in CMR by monthly cohorts, but also in customer retention. So how much of the customers signed are staying, and not only the revenue picture, which is something investors like, but I think is something you should really look at yourself as well. A bit more analysis on churn. So how much did we actually have on churn? Again, per segment, maybe per churn reason, like, hey, how much did we lose to, lost to competitors churn, and to, be creative with this. All the renewals coming up. Of course, in Younium, you can set something that's called automatic renewal. Then you don't have to do any renewals. It just automatically renews for you when the notice period is over. And the active renewals are where you say to a customer, like, okay, we signed for a year, and next year we're going to review and renegotiate maybe even a new term for the coming year after, which is always good for a touch point to talk new modules, new monetized features, and things like that. So that's a bit about bookings. The recurring revenue is like the monthly recurring revenue. In this case, it says this year, which is of course nice. And here you can see like we highlight let's look a bit further. I mean, we want to look a bit actually to this is again this year, next year. So we're looking now at 2024. So how are we going to do that? And that is important as well, because in the subscription business, you also want to forecast. So how do we forecast? Pretty simple, actually. Committed in this case means there are contracts that are not expiring in the month of April with their subscription. So that's committed revenue because they're still ongoing in that time. The yellow ones are the automatic renewed subscriptions. So the ones that are, still a customer, they haven't churned yet, but are an automatic renewal. And then you can say for your business, like, typically 90% of the customers that are on automatic renewal will renew. And then you also kind of know, okay, then 90% of this amount will possibly also be there in April, in addition to, of course, the projected forecasts from sales. Active renewals, I already explained. If there's renewals that are up for renegotiation, those would be highlighted in red. And milestones is, so let's say you sign a customer today. What is it? Like the 14th of April today when I'm recording this. But they say, we don't want to pay your subscription until we're fully live and onboarded. So you can say to the subscription in Younium, you say, okay, the customer signed today, so my subscription starts today, but they start paying from the point they're live. And the expected go live dates, for instance, 1st of June. Then the forecasted revenue of the go live customer will be forecasted under the milestone revenue in June. Again, that's when you know for your business, okay, 90% of the projects we deliver on time. So we expect 90% of this revenue in June. And the same principle for AR, but also if you have like pay-as-you-go pricing models, you have committed usage here, it will also track, okay, based on the history and based on the subscription still active, we also expect this much revenue coming from usage-based products. So pay-as-you-go products, if you can call it that. And then the same principle applies here. If you want to know a bit more on where does my revenue come from, you can have it per customer, per product category, per product that you are selling in certain periods, next year, last year, historic, whatever you want. Like I said, the consolidated versions, if you only want to see my MRR now for like my office in Amsterdam and I don't want to see the holding, or I only want to see the holding, or I only want to see my US, or if as many entities as you want, can be 30 here, then you can see the revenue for each group. A bit around cash flow. Cash flow is basically like, okay, I'm invoicing something at a certain point. Younium knows when we invoice according to the subscription, so it forecasts that. Plus the payment term is kind of, when can I expect some money? And that's all for today. You have revenue recognition, but we dive into that a bit later. So that concludes the insights portion. I will now move forward to the orders portion. So we are going to create a subscription. We're going to create a subscription here in the create order fields. So typically a subscription in Younium is not really created from Younium. We try to, of course, use our CRM data like a HubSpot or a Salesforce, for instance, to kind of take all the information sales collected over time, during the sales cycle, during contract negotiations, quotes, and what have you, and turn that data into what we call a draft order. And that draft subscription will then enter typically in a workflow, a finance department or a sales ops department, somebody that has, administration skills. I can say I'm sales. I don't have it. I don't have administration skills. So it's good that there's a second check. So then when the order gets created, like, okay, we not promise a payment term of 300 days instead of 30, right? So typically this is not even done in Younium, the creating of subscriptions, because we try to automate that based on the CRM data we get already. But to show you how flexible subscription is, we're going to create a subscription now. So starting off, you have an account, and that can be, a certain customer. An account is a customer, and you have an invoice account. And when is this used? For instance, you sign a deal with Coca-Cola in Amsterdam, but the head office is somewhere in San Diego. I don't know where the head office of Coca-Cola is, but the invoice needs to go to the head office, and the customer is the one in Amsterdam, right? So that's why you have a nuance between these two. Also, if you sign 100 companies like Coca-Cola, maybe they want a consolidated invoice for all their Coca-Cola branches on the invoice account. So you can also try consolidate that. Or if they said, no, I want 100 different invoices, you set this button invoice separate, then the invoice accounts get all the invoices on the same time separate for each subsidiary. This is also used in reseller structures. So when you're working with resellers, you can have a account that is, maybe if you have typically two structures, right? Either the reseller gets a kickback or the reseller invoices the end customer. So if the reseller invoices the end customer, the reseller is the invoice account, because they just get an invoice, they pay the invoice, and they invoice the end customer with a certain markup on it. And otherwise, you have the using customers, the invoice account. So you invoice the end customer, but the reseller is the using account. So you can also, track how much revenue did they do for you, and then charges or give them a certain kickback based on, X number of revenue they had, even in tiers. So that's where this is used for. Order types, you have subscription or you have a sales order. So if you just want to send an invoice for 10 training hours, for instance, you could also do that with Younium. The currency the customer is operating in, it jumps basically to the setting that is set in the customer name. But if so, it's already applied on the customer level. What is the invoice setting? But you can still change it here if needed for whatever reason. The subscription is a term, meaning does it have a start and end date, or does it go on forever? We just have a start date. Typically, we see, it starts on the 1st of May, for instance. So we started on the beginning of a month. It's going to last for 12 months. After that, it's going to be renewed with 12 months. And do we want Younium to be automatically renewing this customer? Yes or no? And what is the notice period? So when do they have to call us to cancel this? What Younium does is, after this period is expired, then it will automatically generate the invoice for the term coming after this one. Then there's some extra fields you can use, like, okay, I want to have them receive a specific invoice template for this customer. So if you want to invoice directly from Younium, you can assign a certain template. How does it look? Or they want to pay with credit card or direct debit. Things like that, and you have a lot of custom fields you can set up. So for instance, if you're flexible in your indexation, which we see sometimes, some people do it according to a CPI index, so they just go with whatever a local government maybe says. But some also agree with a certain customer, like, okay, you never get an index above 5%. So you can also set here, like, okay, if we do indexation, this customer doesn't get more than 5, or even they're excluded from the indexation. How do the customer pay? But I already said that. And if you do some sort of, sales responsible, so you want to have a customer success owner or a sales owner, and you want to calculate some sales commissions based on this, or as customer success commissions based on this, you can also use those for that. Then you have your product portfolio, which you set up on the products here. And what we try to make is product hierarchies. So we don't want you to have 200 products in your price list. We try to make, a certain way of, I will show you, that's easier. So you have a product called subscription of service. That is your base product, but you see this a lot, right? You have a starter bundle, a professional bundle, an enterprise bundle, or some sort of bundle structure on SaaS company websites. So if you select one of these, you see that you find this bundle here, and this product is configured to have like a base fee. So this customer pays a base fee, and then it's one license. So this is like a SaaS license of subscription, and that SaaS license is 500 euros per month. So this is the price period, not the billing period. So this is a monthly price. So this is 500 euros per month. That is what they pay for the license. But also they have, for instance, users. So you pay also in addition for a number of users. But you see here, the first 10 users in the tier, so this is a tiered product, are 0 flat. So you don't pay for the first 10 users because we configure this to be like those are included in the pricing of the product. But if you go above the 10 users, then you start paying 5 euros per unit up until 20 users, and 50 up to 50 for 4 euros, etc. Now, if this customer negotiated completely different tiers, on each customer level, you can completely redefine the tier. So let's say now we have negotiated this with the customer. So now for this specific customer, the tiering is completely different, but we didn't need to create a full new product in the product section. You can just configure that and it still stays the same. So that's super efficient. Of course, you can put your discounts here if you want to do that based on the agreements as well, and the number of users they actually have. So let's do 35. Why not? Here you also have the start on and end on. So, this subscription starts on the 1st of May, but we already said in the insights part of this video that if the customer doesn't want to pay right away, you negotiate something, you can either set the charge of the product to a specific date. So let's say you say, okay, no, they start paying for the users on the 1st of June. So that's 1 month later, so we give them 1 month free of charge because that's typically how long the onboarding takes. Or we set it to a milestone, and the milestone is, for instance, when you can have multiple milestones. Here you can see examples like, okay, when the implementation started, we invoice 50%, and when the implementation is finished, we invoice the other 50% of the subscription or the setup fees. You typically see those things in SaaS, so you probably know what I'm talking about. Also, let's say this customer ordered an implementation fee, and you see here the implementation fee is a one-off fee of, 50,000 euros. That's a juicy amount of one-off fees. And we invoice that right away from the beginning, or like I said, you link it to the milestones. So if I'm done with this, I'm super happy with my order. I can also click here if I want to negotiate a discount. The discount works the same. So we start the discount when the order starts, and we end it when the order ends. And when the order ends means also if it's renewed, it didn't end, right? So this is a lifetime discount. If you want the discount to only last for, 3 months or 1 year in this case, you can set it to 1 year discount for 50%, so they get a 50% first year. Also, does it apply to all charges? No, we only want it on the users, or they only get the implementation fee. So that's how you can set up discounts as well, in addition to, of course, the line-by-line type of discount. But this is the faster way. If we are happy, I can activate the subscription. And if I now have an active subscription, I can also invoice the subscription. So typically what we see our customers do is once you created a new deal, you also invoice the customer right away, right? So normally you don't go and invoice every subscription manually, but on a new deal basis, we like a lot of cash, so we just invoice the new customer. So let's do that. The target date is where you tell Younium, you need to look at this specific date to see if there's anything we can invoice for this customer. So that is, in this case, the 1st of May. So we can invoice something on the 1st of May. If I would put this to the 1st of April, Younium says there's nothing to invoice for this customer. So now it is the 1st of May, and then I can. And then, of course, the invoice date is ultimately the date that's going to appear on the invoice. Because if I invoice them now on the 14th of April, they may have problems with my payment date. Because, I'm starting in May. Why would I already pay my invoice middle of May? That's not fair for the 30 days. So that you can put the invoice date there. Then create the invoice. You can preview it, so you will have your own logo, layouts, fonts, what have you here. If you would invoice directly from Younium, you can also choose to invoice from your existing finance system. So, for instance, like a PE accounting in Sweden, a Fort Knox, or Exact in the Netherlands, all kinds of finance systems all over the world, NetSuite, Microsoft BC. You can check our website for the connectors page to see what all the finance systems we have there. It's a lot. So in the case where you invoice from a finance system, pretty much all the data that is on this invoice is sent to the finance system, and then the finance system ultimately owns the template and sends it to the customer, which also then means the payments that are coming in from that invoice will come into the finance system, and there you do the cross-referencing of the payments versus the invoice pretty much. But if you choose to invoice from Younium, this is where you set up your template. Each customer can have their own language template or their own logo template. It depends on how cool you want to be, right? But this is what we agreed in the subscription, so it looks good. I can just post this now, and then it's sent to the customer. So as you have probably experienced in your SaaS business, is that it doesn't really is a perfect world. So typically they can call you. It started on the 1st of May, but they call you in August like, hey, we saw this add-on during onboarding. It's interesting to us. We want to have that. Okay, well that's great news. So we change the order. And we say, okay, let's pretend we're in the future, right? It's the 17th of August, like nice, annoying, middle of the month prorated calculation stuff. They call you and they say, I want to have this add-on you have released with the feature. We love it. So we add it to the order. Then again, same principle applies. You can give your discounts. You can do align to orders again. And in this case, the start align to order doesn't mean we invoice it from the 1st of May. That will be unfair because they didn't have access to this for 3.5 months. In this case, align to order means to the change of the subscription. So the 17th of August. If they say like we want to make use of this add-on from the 1st of September, for instance, then you can set this to a specific date, 1st of September. Same principle as with creating an order. I just leave it to the 17th of August because I want Younium to have a tough time calculating the proration. So if I now activate change, yes, a few things will happen. So now it's live. I again do the manual invoice. So I now have to do 8/17 because we need Younium to look at when can I invoice something, right? The rest was already invoiced for the full year. So now if I preview this, you see the service period for this feature is from the 17th of August to the 30th of April. It's one per piece, it's this amount, so you can grab your calculator at home and double check if Younium did good math here for these dates. So it's 200 euros a month for 12 months, but we have less days, so this should be the amount and the total price. I believe Younium, so I leave it here. Then I post it, and now it's sent, and the update has been made. The customer has been upsold. Now a few things happen as well. So if I go back to the order, you can see here there's a booking. That was the new deal that we originally created when we created the subscription on April 14th. And then there was a change, which I also did today on the April 14th, of the added 200 euros a month, which is super cool. And you can also see Younium keeps track of the versions here. So if a customer told me like, hey, the version 1 didn't have this product on it, I can always track back and see, okay, what did version 1 look like? Okay, there was no add-on yet at that time. We had it started on these and these dates. So you can always have a repository of 1,000 versions if you change a lot. Of course, this is a bit boring because it only has 2. So this is kind of the how you create and change a subscription plus the version tracking, which was the second portion of this video. So I hope that is cool. I'm going over to the next bullet, which is the subscription billing in bulk and batches. So to understand how you can set up certain batches, you go to accounts, because on a certain account you can define how will we invoice them. So we can set them in certain settings, like, we do invoice enterprise clients right away, or we do them later. You can make different settings, but also you can assign them to certain batch groups. And what is a common use case for us is batch groups where, this is the bulk, you can just invoice, we don't care, just we ask for forgiveness if it goes wrong. But you also have batch groups, for instance, like certain customers that need to send you a purchase order number before actually sending the invoice. And you may want to send those customers an invoice or a pro forma invoice, a draft invoice in advance of the actual invoice, right? Without the invoice number yet. So they can like, hey, dear customer, this is what we're going to invoice you in 3 months. Please send me your purchase order number. So you call a batch group need PO number first or something like that. So that's how you assign batches to a specific customer based on the agreements you make with them. So if I then go to invoices, which is where I do my bulk billing, I can either create an on-account invoice. So, okay, I just make, for this specific customer, I make a certain product, and I have, it's called this, and, certain description, it was 1 piece. So let's say they just ordered 10 training hours and you don't want to go and change an order and add the hours to the order. You just create a quick invoice. But if you want to do an invoice batch and do the full shebang, you can go here and say, do I want to invoice all accounts? Do I want to invoice all batches? No, I want to only invoice the one that has a 30-day payment term or need to send the purchase order number first. So here you can segment how often and who you want to invoice certain batch. Also, if you have a minimum invoice, I don't want to invoice amounts of like below €4 because customers don't tend to pay them because the manual handling of those invoices are too much trouble. So I wait until there's more to be invoiced for that certain amount. But here you have that target date again. So this is where you tell Younium, look at the 1st of May, because then you include all that, all the subscriptions that are starting or are renewing or are monthly billing, quarterly billing, biannual billing, whatever, on that specific date. What this also does is, because you have some customers or many customers of us as usage billing, it doesn't only check what is there to be built on the 1st of May, but also what usage was there in April. Because on the 1st of May, we know what there is, used in April typically. And the usage comes in via maybe API or via CSV imports, depending on what you can do with your platform to get us the usage data. And that just fills automatically. And then when you set this target date at 1st of May, Younium checks what usage was there in April, what recurring charges are there for May. And then it consolidates everything. Then you can create a batch, and then Younium goes through the full system, and it says, hey, there was a few issues with some error. That's always good. We like errors because that means, we don't want you to miss out on sending an invoice, right? So you go and check the errors, and once you're happy, you can just post the batch, and then all invoices that are in Younium for the month of May will be sent to the customers. So that is kind of the bulk billing. It's a short topic, but that's also what we like, right? We don't want to spend time on invoicing because it's not a fun time. So that's how you do that. Then I'm moving on to the revenue recognition and schedules. And actually, that is something you set in the settings, integrations. And then you have order settings and booking rules, and you have accounts receivable, and there's many options here. You can configure your own revenue recognition settings, and that's here. Sorry, I had to look for it. And you can make your own rules. That sounds bad, but for instance, like this is the most common one, monthly overtime. So I invoice on the 1st of May, and then it spreads out 12 months. The full annual invoice, it spreads it out over 12 months. And how do you distribute that? Do you do it prorated, so month over month? Yes. Or you're greedy and you just take like, this is my revenue now. I want to spend it all on big Ferrari cars. Or you sometimes also have front load and back loads. And that is sometimes seen in setup fees. For instance, like we recognize 50% of the setup fee now, and we delay 50% of the revenue until completion of product or end of the year or things like that. Or you even have mixes. So we take 20% of the revenue, of the full distributed revenue now, and 80% we split monthly over time. Or you can also do manual distribution, which is, for instance, seen in consulting projects where you allocate some certain hours that are booked after time. So you can really customize that. So that's where you set them up. And on an order, so I'm creating an order again, but I'm going to do it a bit faster. If you want to check the order, go back in the video. So let's make an order here quickly. And let's make it annoying in the middle of the month, so you can also see how it would split revenue if you're revenue recognition in the middle of a month. Here you can see the revenue recognition rule. I can also change this per order, per product. It's monthly over time, or this is all the options we just saw, right? So this is monthly over time. So if I would activate this and also create invoice straight away for the 14th of April, it is posted. So now it is sent to the customer. I can also show the schedule. So now I can see how is my revenue distributed. So you can see here, okay, so in the first month, we only had like 16 days, I think, left. So 16 days of 200 is probably this amount. Again, grab your calculator if you want to double check it. And this is the rest of the months. And this is the last month for next year for the other 14 days that we still need to recognize. This is how Younium in practice revenue recognizes it, which will also be reflected in the revenue recognition dashboards here. But also if you have your journals, if you want to have a revenue recognition journal, for instance, you also see which revenue of the total base, because it was just one invoice, is included where. So this is, again, not a long topic, but a super important topic for many SaaS businesses. Then last but not least is the accounts receivable functionality in Younium. The accounts receivable functionality in Younium kind of starts with the invoicing. So you split up your decision in when you meet us. You can choose like, no, I think my finance system is capable of multi-currencies, multi-legal entities, international tax rules in the US. If it can do all of that, fine. then probably your pain is more in the subscription part. You can choose to, okay, let Younium send me that subscription invoice data to my finance system, and I send the invoice from there, which also means my bank account is connected to that. And I do my reminder management from there. I do my period closing from there, and my journals and all the good stuff. But if you say like, no, I think I have quite a local finance system, made for my specific country, but I want to go international, it could be a super cool thing to look at Younium's accounts receivable, because then you can choose to send the actual invoice like we did with the invoice batches. And every customer could have said like, I want to have an email with a PDF invoice, or I want to have a PEPL invoice, the e-invoicing standards or other even invoicing standards are also supported. Or I want to have, an actual printed invoice, or, I need to print it out from Younium, put it in an envelope and send it off. We even have a connection to a company that does that for you if you want to do that. We don't see it a lot anymore, thank God, but it's still there. And if you want Younium to actually send out the invoice, we of course also need to know who paid those invoices, right? And that's where you have the payments. And if you have a super board finance system, they can add manual payments, each of them. So like, hey, I have an invoice payment, let me add it. But if you are less bored in finance, you can either import bank statements directly, or you have a connection to the bank. So we link your bank to Younium via PSD2 certified banking gateway called AYA for Europe, called Aritma for the Nordics, for instance. There's others. And then it will retrieve automatic payment data every whatsoever you set up, right? And then you can also, of course, receive all the payments you receive, and then you can say like, okay, Younium says this invoice probably belongs to that payment. But there's probably, if you have invoice reference 1234 and the customer put 4321 in the invoice reference, there's some matching you have to do manually, like because there was a mistake in the reference field, for instance. So that's what you do here. And once we have the invoice data, of course, you also have a reminder. You want to send reminders if the payment term is over and the due date is gone. So you can either do, we sometimes see customers that have, maybe super high average revenue per account. They only have maybe 100 customers. They want to do it a bit manually. So that's an empty demo environment. You see all the invoices that are past due here. And then you see like when did we last send them a reminder, how many reminders did we send, and what was the original due date, and how much are they past due. They can say, okay, I want to send them a certain reminder in a certain reminder template. If you want to automate that a bit more, you go to invoice settings, automatic invoice reminders, and you say, okay, the first invoice reminder goes out 10 days after the due date, with a template. Hey, super friendly, it's the first reminder. Hey, dear customer, you probably have missed my invoice. Please see it attached. Can you please pay it? Whereas the second reminder is like, hey, I'm, we're getting very upset. We're so scared you forgot about us. And the third reminder is more strict or threatening with legal steps, for instance. This is called the automation, but maybe you have like, 5 customers that make up for 50% of your revenue, which are like true enterprise clients. You may want to segment that a bit to make sure that they don't get maybe, automatic reminders. You want to do something for that yourself. So instead of like sending them the random sequence, you just send this to your customer success manager. Like, hey, can you give them a call and see what's up? So this is kind of the reminder management of things. Already talked a bit about the multi-legal entity structure, which is good. And we also talked a bit about the currencies, but I just want to talk a bit about the currencies, because you kind of work with 3 currencies, right? So you have your pricing currency that is on your website. So, the subscription is 100 GBP or 100 euros or 100 US dollars. That's the pricing currency. Then you have the invoicing currency. So what is the currency you're actually invoicing at? But you also have the reporting currency. And each legal entity, so this is, for instance, the Amsterdam where I am at, then it's euros. But here you have the Swedish, which is Swedish crowns. And the parent company, the owners, are maybe US dollars. Or it's an American company, right? So they want to see the revenue in USD, they want to see it in euros, and they want to see it in Swedish crowns. So that's super important that that's supported, and that is supported within Younium. And also we talked a bit about the sales taxes as well. Of course, you have the European tax support, but we also have the US dollars, the US tax support. So if you invoice in US, and I think if your legal entity is above 1 million revenue, then you need to pay sales tax, and the sales tax is kind of complicated. I think there's roughly 14,000 tax rules, so we have automation for that as well. So long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know if you managed to stay the whole way, but like I said, we have the topic, so you can. I hope you at least seen the relevant parts for you today. Thank you so much for watching this. We really appreciate it. And let us know if you want to book a demo with me or with one of my colleagues. They're better at this than I am. So whatever, but looking forward to meet. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.